So this is the July 1st, 2025 monthly meeting. It was delayed a little bit because I was traveling and helping one of my daughters during the time I would normally be recording it. I'm gonna just get something out of the way. So let's just take a breath together. The first thing I want to do is acknowledge the land spirits where we are. And I use the word land to also include all the elements: air, water, earth, fire. In this expansiveness is just a shortcut way to do that. So thank you to the land. Thank you for holding us. Thank you for reminding us that we are also nature and all of this is connected. Humans also, in our bodies, we have water, fire, air, earth, ether. And having more of a realization that there were people who lived on the land before we did, and that we can communicate in different ways with the spirits, with the land, with trees, flowers, and our connection to the earth and the skies, and on and on. Thank you to the great mystery, whatever words you use, whether it's God, Goddess, all that is, universal intelligence, a field of energy, just acknowledging this greater power that is around us all the time. Thank you to those who are here on the call or listening to the recording. Thank you for your presence in this. And even in this prayer, I'll just acknowledge I was at a wedding shower this weekend and saw someone I hadn't seen in a long time. And I could see that both of us were looking for ways to connect with the younger generations to talk about the land. There were books she and I had both been reading, Serviceberry by Robin Wall Kimmerer, and other books, and finding our own way back to the land. And so that to me is a big part of this ancestral work, is we're finding our way back to the unseen realms and ritual and connection to all of it, connection to well elders, which also includes the tree in your yard or down the street. Like they are our kin. So I'm just presencing that. And thank you to the Wi-Fi. I know that there's been some iffiness in all the different locations I have connected with people or been recently. And just thank you for keeping it steady enough that we can send out these communications to each other and recordings. With this simple opening, I'll say thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is for this prayer. And I'll then invite us to each either call on a trusted guide, trusted power to be with you, or to, if you've already done that today, to just ask them to kind of reinforce this space. And in a very simple way, I'm asking my guides, and you can ask your guides to clear the energetic space around you. And this can be God, Goddess, all that is, or a land spirit, or a saint, a deity, something that you really connect with. It can be the animal spirits. So asking them to clear the energetic space around you, clearing out anything that just does not serve you, maybe energy that you picked up from someone else that you just don't need in your space. And no judgment about that, just feeling like clear the space so you can feel yourself. And then asking the trusted guides to place layers of boundaries around you that is good whenever we're talking about the unseen world or doing any kind of meditating or prayer work. asking them to bring in a golden light from the sun, surrounding you with a bubble of light. This holds your autonomy, your sovereignty, so you can get messages for yourself and not your neighbor's messages, but actually connect with yourself. Calling on silver light from the moon. Placing a bubble around you that creates a reflective thing. So someone comes towards you in your space and you don't want them to come any further, just reflects back to them whatever they are projecting on you. And then calling on a layer of iron from the earth. Thanking Mother Earth for this additional protection around you that is repelling and transmuting any negativity. And in this day and age, it could be that there's some negativity when you're watching the news or even thinking about other places in the world that are going through having challenges, or in our own country, in our own countries, and just asking that that be transmuted into something that can be used as mulch to grow something new. And with this simple opening, space is cleared, we are connected, and I'm going to continue on this recording to share a few things. So I'm going to get my notes out here. And so I just kind of jumped into that space, but I do want to say good day to everyone. Thank you for being here, for listening, for caring about the land, about the world. This is the third monthly Zoom call, and I'm initially recording putting some of these onto my YouTube channel, along with some links to free resources. So I want to invite people to think about the ancestors, think about wellness, think about the land. And so that's why I started out with a prayer, the way that I always do when I'm working with someone individually or leading something in session, and then calling on our trusted guides to be with us throughout our day and night, clear out the stuff that is not ours so we can really tune into what is ours. Okay, so today the topic of focus is building a relationship with the land. And I have two independent study online courses now that are available. And the first one, there's a whole section about building a relationship with the land. And I wanted to start out by reading part of one of the first lessons in that section, and that is the practice of consent. So I'll read some of that and then explain it a little bit more. I started out by saying, I had a dream last night. I was looking at a tree in my neighbor's yard, and the tree had one trunk that had split into two parts, making it look like two different trees with one trunk and a root system. On one side of the tree, there were animals and birds, and feeling the curiosity rise from my magical inner child, I walked outside to get a closer look at a bird that I didn't recognize. So as I got closer, I saw children on one side of the tree, and one of the children reached over to the bird and started to squeeze it. And in the dream, I yelled out, "Stop, let it go." And the child yelled back, "It's my tree in my yard, so it's my bird, and just leave us alone." And the dream and the feelings that I had were so intense, it startled me awake. And I really felt this heaviness in my heart. To me, the dream was speaking to this power over structure that exists in many parts of the world. this ownership of land and animals that occurs without regard for nature's life, interconnection and autonomy, values that we hold dear as humans and we expect as our right. So the dream brought up a question of, okay, this child was saying, I own this, but what about the rights of the nature around us? As I was sitting by the ocean in Venice, California this winter, I was reminded of the power of the elements and our relationship with the vastness of the ocean, mountains, trees, sky, and birds. And there was one day where I was watching the waves playing, playfully interacting with the shorebirds, and I just spent most of my time delighting in how nature plays harmoniously together. Something that I don't always see when I'm looking at nature, this idea of the interaction that's there. And there were days over the winter when I would see and feel the power of the wind as waves would rise and fall, and the palm trees would shake and bend. And there was still this dance between each element that is interconnected. So as I was watching the dance of the elements, I just had been reflecting on the actions of humans who seek to dominate by extracting anything they perceive as valuable, neglecting the harm inflicted on the land. This power over structure that causes senseless damage. So I was left with, what can we do? And so as I was writing, it was like, well, we can pray, we can chant, we can join in community, we can protest, we can boycott, we can adjust our own consumption. We have power over that. And we can also become more conscious and practice consent when interacting in nature. And to me, this is one of the key elements that I've just recognized more and more over the years, is that consent is defined as receiving permission. And why do we just take from nature without at least pausing to ask, pausing to develop these relationships? So the practice that I shared in that first course for that week was to build a relationship with something in nature, to choose a plant, a tree, body of water, animal, or bird to engage with in a fuller way, and to just have that experience. And so the first thing to understand is that communication with nature, and again, you have your experiences, but something I came to realize was that communication with nature is different than communication with a human being. Like, you may sense words, you may have a way of sensing, feeling, hearing things, but chances are you won't have a back and forth conversation necessarily with everything in nature, but just to be open to what arises, a feeling, a thought, a sensation. And then the second thing is to practice consent. You may not hear or feel anything at first, but one way is to approach a new relationship in nature by asking simple questions and making an offering, waiting for a response, a feeling or a sensation like tingling or buzzing, and then moving forward slowly. And to me, part of it is that if I feel neutral, I don't feel a strong yes or no, but I feel kind of neutral, that I usually will take that as a yes. But I might stand by a tree and say, would you like some water? Or would you like me to clear this space with sage, sweetgrass, or smoke? Would you like me to sing a song? Would you like me to sit with you? And then if you don't feel or sense anything, you just make the offering with as much reverence and humility as possible. Here's some words that I have written and, have thought before, something like, my intention is to be present with you, listening, learning, and building a deeper connection. I apologize if my awkward efforts with this offering are hurtful. I sincerely regret anything I might do that isn't what you wish to receive. I'm sorry for any assumptions I make regarding your desire for a relationship with me. I'm here, I'm open, I'm curious, I come in love and will leave if you want me to. I don't always think or say as much as that, but that's the intention. And it's one way to move beyond the privilege that humans sometimes bring to nature, consciously and unconsciously. And here's a contrast, and I don't really feel like anyone in this group would think this, but it's an underlying unconsciousness with possible harm. It's like, hey, tree, I'm here. I'm sure you've been waiting for me. I'm taking time out of my busy schedule to focus on you. What do you have to offer me? Speak up now. I only have 5 minutes and then I need to get back to work. So again, I doubt anyone here is that abrupt or insensitive, but I just say it as an example to encourage you to recognize the subtle ways, maybe, that your privilege as a human can manifest. Even when you go for a walk and you pick up a feather or a rock or a pine cone, without pausing for a moment to ask the land spirits and wait to see if this is meant for you, just notice the lack of appreciation, reverence, and even the ways that we think we're reverent or connecting. It's this act of claiming something without permission. So I know for myself what I've learned is when I spot a feather or a shell on the beach, I just take a moment to ask and observe whether I feel that sense of yes or no. And like I said, if I feel neutral, then I'll pick it up and I'll pause to express my gratitude and to sometimes, again, say an apology of, I apologize if I am not hearing your no. It is not my intention to, but I appreciate having this gift from nature, this symbol of nature, and I go from there. So, I'm going to just share two examples of my experience with nature relationships. When Beth Shakina Terrence and I led a 31 Days of Connecting with the Land program a few summers ago, I was pet sitting in Seattle and I was looking around the yard and I just spontaneously chose a patch of daisies to interact with and to get to know over the 31 days that I was there. I thought I've not ever paid a lot of attention to daisies other than a moment of appreciation, so I will spend time with the daisies. The day after I chose to focus on daisies, I went out to the backyard and saw that all the flowers had been cut down by my friend's husband. All the daisies, all the other flowers around were there. But I was shocked. I was confused as to what to do now. You could see the root system and the tops of where the flowers had been cut, but the flowers were gone. And so at first I thought, "Oh, I'm going to need to pick something else because all the flowers are gone." And then I talked with my friend's husband to just say, "What happened? You cut down all the daisies." And he said, "It's a plant that really spreads, and they were going to be gone for 2 months. And he just he didn't realize I had chosen to get to know the daisies while they were gone." So I just decided that instead of rejecting it, I was going to go outside and sit by this root system of daisies every day for a little bit in the evening and just be with the daisies. I was just going to be with the daisies as they are. And nothing much was happening. And then about 2 weeks into it, I felt a message. I felt like the daisies were conveying to me that I was so focused on grief and loss, but that they weren't having that experience. That the flowers being cut were just part of the life cycle of nature, death and rebirth. And so they told me to stop focusing on the loss and notice other things. And as they said that, I became aware of how there had been a bird called a towhee bird who had been coming to the tree right in front of the office window where I was working every day. And the bird would come and sing every day. And when I would go to sit with the daisies in the backyard, I was aware of a towhee bird that would fly around, be on the different um, plants. So I started to talk with the bird a little bit more, say good morning, or it's good to see you, or thank you for being here, or thank you for your beautiful song. I also began seeing daisies in full bloom all over the neighborhood, different shapes and sizes. There were these tiny little daisies, and there were the bigger daisies and tall daisies. And I love flower essences, and I had ordered a daisy flower essence from Green Hope Farms. And the affirmation of the daisy was, I am centered in my heart wisdom, and that daisies help center us in a cheerful, engaged enjoyment of life. And as the month went on, one day I went out sitting by the daisies, and there were some new daisies that were growing. There were little daisies coming up where the bigger daisies had been cut. And as time went on in the next week or two, they got bigger and bigger and grew. And so it was this experience of, to me, part of the choosing something in nature is to notice the life cycle in process and to notice the feelings that I was having just by placing my attention there. And I've been back a couple of summers, a couple more times since that experience. And every time I'm there, I go right out and just greet the daisy. You know, it's a reminder of how connected we are. Also, focusing on the daisy has brought awareness to me when I'm in other locations where I see daisies. And it's like anything that reminds you of a friend who might be in another part of the world or who is no longer in a physical body. This connection with nature. And I feel like I'm just going to wrap this up and then stop the recording and open it up for anyone who would like to share anything today. Is that to me, one of the things that this idea of consent and practicing it, even with something that is not going to respond with a definitive yes or no for you. It's when I think about some of the entitlement and disconnection in the world, I feel like part of it is this disconnection from the roots or the way we would have been taught by our elders at another time in the world, that we would have from a very young age been taught about the the connection we have, here are your kin, this this patch of daisies, the trees, you are in connection, the birds, the flowers. And as I opened with the prayer, it's something I know I've become more conscious of with my grandchildren, is teaching them about consent and connection and our impact on other humans, and that when we just take something or we just assume something, and then also the connection that we practice with our nature spirits, with the land spirits, with the animals and the animal kingdom. Yeah. So I am complete, and thank you everyone for listening. I'm going to stop the recording and then open for anyone who would like to share.